It's here. It's Christmas morning. It's Halloween. It's New Year's Day. All rolled into one. It's the start of training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, that's what's starting today. And we're going to break it all down. The messages that Nick Sirianni has to present to the fans or to the players and what we expect to see in the next couple weeks as we get set for week one, which it's right around the corner. Trending in the AM, we got special guests and everything today as well. Trending the AM on Philadelphia Sports Network. We start in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you know the drill. Hit that like button on whichever platform you're watching. Click share, subscribe, turn the notifications on, do whatever it is necessary to tell everybody, tell every friend to come join the most interactive morning show in the Philadelphia sports market. It is the only show on the TV, on the radio, on YouTube, on social media, where your opinions actually matter. It's the only one. And we got lots to break down. We got lots to talk about today. As it's training camp day. It's to a grown adults don't care about Christmas anymore. They care about the first day of football practice. When the season is officially getting started, and I am here for it. I can't wait. With the dreck of the Phillies, with the disappointment and heartbreak of the Sixers, all we got to look forward to is training camp beginning today. We got a lot to get into with it. I got lots of different things, whatever you want to talk about it as well. I want to dive into Nick Sirianni's opening message and what it needs to be. And I messaged a coach friend of mine. We're going to get into what he said he would act like if he was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles and what he would say. It's a rough morning. I feel like Gardner's green knees, man. I don't know what to tell you there, man. Good morning, Kyle. How you doing today? I also got my main man, Bryan Cameron from Flippin the Birds. He's one of the Eagles managing editor for our website, Philadelphia Sports Network. He's going to be joining in a few minutes to hammer out some of this content here. If you're watching on Twitter, there's about half a dozen to a dozen people watching at a time over there, 7 right now. Make sure you head over to the YouTube page or the Facebook page for Philadelphia Sports Network. That's the place where you can get your comments heard. Hungry dogs run faster. And they are hungry dogs, but they got targets on their back, Kyle. They are not going to sneak up on anybody this year. Last year, for as great of a year as 2022 was for the Philadelphia Eagles, there was a little exceeding expectations in that, run. Jalen Hurts his catapult to superstardom. It was unprecedented. It's not going to happen again. The Eagles will not surprise anybody. They've got, I would venture to argue, because of the love-hate relationship Philadelphia sports teams have with the rest of the world, that we have a bigger target on our back than the defending championship Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. I almost feel that that's an accurate statement, that more teams are circling the Eagles on their calendar than they are the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's a very fair thing for me to say. Week 3 versus Washington, they own Prince Harry. Look, the Washington Commanders, I've been blatant and obvious saying this many a times, man, Chatter. The Washington Commanders are going to be one of the most disappointing teams in football. The Washington fan base is very hyped over Josh Harris. I really need the ref the district guys to hit me up because they don't understand what Josh Harris is. He's just a businessman, a fund hedge manager, a guy that just cares about the bottom dollar. He really is. So they're going to be disappointed there. I never realized how Miles Sanders was. Well, man, Chatter, you should have realized it because I've been talking about it since day one that we lost him. That was going to be a really tough loss to overcome. He was a very, very important part of our team last year. All right, we're going to waste no time here. already joined us on the I Have No Sponsor hotline. Guest for the day, my man, managing editor of the Philadelphia Eagles for Philadelphia Sports Network, also co-host of Flip the Birds podcast on Philadelphia Sports Network. My man, my close friend, Bryan Cameron. How you doing this morning?
Doing well, doing well. Good morning. How you feeling, Phil?
I'm feeling great. You sound like you still need a little bit more coffee in your veins there.
I need something in my system right now. I'm not gonna lie, but I think the excitement of Eagles training camp kicking off should be enough. So I give it 5 minutes or so, and I'll be alive for you.
I'm telling you, as soon as I clicked that live button and said it is better than Christmas morning, it's training camp day, dude. I'm excited. I got midnight green, not Kelly green, running through my veins this morning.
It's funny. I have a mixture of both, man. Like if they take out my blood, you're gonna see like little glows of Kelly green with the midnight green below it. I'm
I,
super stoked, man. I can't wait.
on a side note, before we start talking training camp, I'll just say this right here: the most unpopular opinion I've ever put out on Twitter is that I hate the Kelly green jerseys, and I will not be running out to buy any Kelly green gear as soon as it drops today, tomorrow, yesterday, whenever it drops. I will have nothing to do with Kelly green gear.
So I need to know why, because I know a lot of the fan base is very against it because it was part of a losing culture per se. But yeah,
That is
so
part of it
tell me
for
why.
sure.
Okay.
Like part of it is because I grew up. You're a young baby. I'm an old ass man. You know what I mean? Like I remember like my first like real true Eagles memories is like Richie Kotite and Buddy Ryan and the Fog Bowl and Randall Cunningham just coming up short. Like, why do you want to relive memories from a very not a bad but a very disappointing time in Eagles history? I mean, it was very disappointing. Plus, honestly, I don't like bright colors. I like dark colors, and midnight green is a much darker color than the Kelly green.
But you have to agree. I mean, it just looks so good with this specific team. Like the swagger of this team just fits
Well,
it
the
so
swagger.
well. And
There is swagger there for sure.
if any team could fix that time period, just kind of mold it into the right way and the right direction, it's gonna be this team. It's gonna be Jalen Hurts. It's gonna be Devontae Smith, AJ Brown. I just feel like it's a right way to how do you say this? To write history. To
Right,
have
right.
history go in the right direction.
See, I want new history, and I would
Well,
rather
that's
them
what it is.
create like a new like the Sixers roll out a new like city edition jersey every year. I'd rather them roll out something fun. Like I love when was it last year, 2 years ago when the Bengals did the white with the black trim jerseys. Like I
Mhm.
was ready to go buy a Joe Burrow jersey because I thought that was so like I want something new, like sleek, modern. I don't want the past. I don't live in the past. I don't do hindsight. I look to the future, and
I
that's what
want
I
a
want.
completely new line of jerseys. I want something new. I want something fresh. I mean, listen, like I grew up in the Donovan McNabb era, right? Like McNabb was the first quarterback I ever saw, in a football game. Against the Giants, saw him running all over the field with Brian Westbrook. I love it, right?
I'm not allowed to hang him up in the background. I think I would get a little too much flack, but I keep him right there next to me at all times.
I love it, man. I love that era. That was my era. But right now, it's like it's time to usher in something new because a lot of people don't think about it. Midnight Green was also associated with Chip Kelly, DeMarco Murray, Sam Bradford, Kevin Cobb. Like it was associated with some really dark times. Carson Wentz's dark time. Like it was associated with a lot of bad crap that happened, right? But this Kelly Green and this Jalen Hurts, the AJ Brown, the Hassan Reddick, like you're not gonna tell me if you're driving past a pro shop and you see a Hassan Reddick #7 Kelly Green jersey, you're not gonna say, oh, maybe I
Nope,
should buy it.
not doing it.
You're
Not doing it.
lying to me, Phil. You're
And,
lying.
no, man, Chatter's right here, man. Spot on. It's all a money grab by these people, right? And they just
It's
want
a
to
business. It's a
money, man.
business.
It's such a bold business move. Real quick before we talk Eagles, I don't know if you saw literally like 15 minutes before it went live. I saw the tweet. Saquon Barkley did officially sign a new contract with the Giants.
A
Only a
new
1 year
injury.
deal. Only like a $500,000 more than the franchise tag. He really held out for that. Are you surprised that he signed so quickly and so easily for such a minimal amount over what he was going to sign for? Because I haven't even read the full details of the contract. I just saw it said 1 year up to $11 million, which what was the franchise tag? 10-3 or 10-4?
Yeah, it was right around that ballpark. I'm a little shocked that he did it. I get the whole idea of not wanting to sit out, wanting to play with your team. I completely get that. Saquon Barkley's a football guy at the end of the day, right? He loves the game. He loves to be out there, but I'm of the mindset that these running backs deserve a lot more money. I'm a big running back fan. I was a big, Miles Sanders guy, like when he was here. These guys deserve a lot of money for what they do because you can't run an offense without a running back. I don't care if Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts is back there. Like you to protect your quarterback, you need a good running game. Now, does that mean you need a running back that's going to be worth 14 mil, 20 mil? No, absolutely not. And I think that's where the common ground has to be set. The balance has to be set where running backs are getting paid, the 11 mil, 10 mil easily, right? That's their ballpark. But at the same time, teams got to recognize like these guys are just as important as your tight end, as your wide receiver. Like these guys are multi-talented players nowadays. Like you have DeAndre Swift from the Eagles, who's probably going to be lined up for a payday at the end of the season, who's also a receiver / running back.
Yeah, no, we'll get. I mean, Mad Chatter already brought it up a few minutes ago. Mad Chatter, it's always in the comments, Brian. He's a Bills fan, but he's becoming an Eagles fan because of this show. And he was talking about he was watching film and did not realize how important Miles Sanders was. We're going to get to that in a few minutes, but I want to start with today's obviously day one of training camp. Everyone's reporting to the NovaCare complex, and I put out a thread yesterday on Twitter. It's so fun. I miss the days of Westchester and Lehigh, the players checking into the dorm rooms, bringing their little box TVs because they're going to be living in college dorms. The big guys bringing in mattresses. I miss that. But it's beyond all that. The NovaCare complex is state of the art and all. I understand why they don't do that, but it's all still about today is all about the message that Nick Sirianni has to put out there for the players to get them started. He's got to start camp off on the right foot. If you, Brian, were Nick Sirianni, you get the team together for the first moment today, what is the first thing you are saying to this team so that everything else that happened before is gone? What are you focusing on and saying right now?
See, now that little that last line you said threw me off because I was ready to go and saying, hey, like let's pick up where we left off. Like we have unfinished business. We went all the way last year without completing our goal, without completing the task. Now, whether that was a little bit rigged against us, it doesn't matter. At this point, we're all healthy. We're all here. We've added some great players. We've added Jalen Carter. We've added Keely Ringo. We've added Sidney Brown. Like we've got the pieces in place to replace the pieces that we lost. But let's pick up where we left off. Let's continue the season per se. Like this season's still not over until we host the Lombardi. And I think that's to be the main objective. They had to defeat the Super Bowl hangover, right? Like they had to defeat the fact that they did just play in February. So the best way to do that is be like, hey guys, you went on a little vacation, great. The season's still going. Let's keep going. Like keeping that mindset where the season is still here is gonna be beneficial for the team because they're out of that vacation mode. They're not thinking about the Super Bowl that they just lost. To them, it was just a quick tournament. Now you got to turn around and go actually for the Lombardi all the way this year.
So I got a buddy of mine, Coach Gabe Martinez. He's a friend of the show. He's been on the show in the past. He coaches pro football in Europe, a lot of the semi-pro leagues in the U.S. He's a sports agent for Pro Level Sports Agency. So I sent him a message yesterday, and I'm like, yeah, he's in Texas. He's a Cowboys fan, but he's also a huge Jalen Hurts fan. So I'm like, Coach, what would you say if you were doing this? And he sent me back this long, detailed message. And I'm just going to pull out a couple of the pieces. He basically wrote me a whole speech to give the Eagles on opening day. But these are the parts that really stuck out. So he would say he would make a big push on mentioning to the Eagles today that we're not sneaking up on anybody this season. And then he would also spend a lot of time talking about closing the loop mentally. Any area we struggled last season because we're not sneaking up on anybody, we've got to be extra careful in practice to fix those, small mental mistakes that we had last year. And then he pulled a great Jalen Hurts type quote out. And then he said he would close today with, the greats do the extra stuff daily that everybody else does occasionally. There's nothing extraordinary about those people aside from the fact that they do the extra on an ordinary day. I was like, dude, I'm ready to run through a brick wall. But I like
that has to be at the NovaCare.
I opened the show up before you got on, and I said that I almost feel like the Eagles have a target on their back, but I almost feel like because of the image of the Eagles, because of the image of Philadelphia, that target is bigger than even on Kansas City, who just won the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to knock the Eagles down, so you've got to know that, and you've got to be prepared and ready for every team's best every single day. It almost sounds cliche to say that, but it is kind of the truth, isn't it?
It definitely is, and it's actually proven over the last day or so with PFF leaving Jalen Hurts off the top 50 list. Like this is an MVP runner up. Like this guy was the MVP until he went down. Let's call it what it is. Should have been the MVP in the Super Bowl, even though they lost. But it shows they I don't know. and I hate to say it, I don't know what it is because obviously like there's a lot of different factors, right? Nobody likes the Eagles. Nobody likes the Philadelphia fan base in any league. Um, Nobody likes a lot of things out of Philadelphia. But it's just the blatant disrespect since
Yeah.
2017. Like even after they won the Super Bowl, they were ran off as a team that couldn't get back. Now, granted, they didn't get back, but this team is different. Like this team is probably one of the youngest rosters in the league and probably has the longest the longest Super Bowl window in the league. To be honest, I mean Joe Burrow, yeah, he's here, but he's coming off what's like a year and a half of an injury.
Mhm.
Pat Mahomes is not getting any younger. You have Josh Allen, who nobody knows what he can actually do now. Justin Herbert, who's kind of fallen off a cliff ever since what's his name? Oh my God, Shane Steichen left. And you have Hurts here. Hurts is like literally just standing in the middle of all this dust and the storm, still standing, still trying to march forward and actually do something. And it's weird. You want this kind of player on your team. Every NFL coach wants this kind of player on their team, especially at the quarterback position. He's here. He's in the league, and he's still being greatly disrespected by every single media analyst. I mean, just alone saying that he's the sixth best quarterback in the league blows my mind. He's definitely top three, in my opinion, at least. And it's just wild. I mean, it's a lot of people just really want to disrespect the Eagles, and I still can't understand why.
I mean, there's pretty much everything you said there is accurate on that, but yeah, it's like you almost sound as a major media writer or person, you almost sound dumb to an
Like a
extent.
bitter ex.
Yeah, bitter X, dumb that you don't know football. Like clearly, all right, you want to put Mahomes ahead of Hurts, obviously. Burrow, you can make the argument. You could almost smidge make the argument for Josh Allen, even though he hasn't played in the Super Bowl. But you can't make the argument for Justin Herbert. You can't make the argument for Lamar Jackson. The disrespect. Like I talked about it. I did a show a couple weeks ago, and you can answer this question if you want. The most underrated Eagle going into this season, and I got crushed because I said Hassan Reddick is one of those underrated Eagles. And I know that's hard to imagine, but let me explain it. Hassan Reddick, in my opinion, is one of the top 3 edge rushers in football. And yet he wasn't on that top 50. There was literally about 7 or 8 edge/outside linebacker/blitz the quarterback guys. And you're going to tell me guys like that we had 16 and a half sacks last year? You're not going to put him in the top 50, but you're going to put guys with 10 or 11 sacks ahead of him. The disrespect there, it's all over. I don't want this team to be the hungry dog anymore. I want this team to get the respect they deserve. I don't know. I mean, it almost makes them sound like they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about. They get paid millions of dollars to just show up on TV and just say the most blatant things in the world, and they really don't know what they're talking about. Like you said it right there, Hassan Reddick should have actually been probably Defensive Player of the Year last year. Just the same
Oh,
way
without
Jalen
a doubt.
Hurts should have been MVP. A lot of these guys are just being overlooked because they're being considered as flash in the pan kind of players. They're not household names.
Right.
They're not marketable at the moment, right? But you go to Philly, like Hassan Reddick is the man right now. Like
Yeah.
there's no way anybody can say less of him. I mean, when you talk about him, you're talking about Nick Bosa, you're talking about Myles Garrett. After that, it's kind of it's the same thing as Hurts. Like who's better than Reddick after those two? And even so, last season, Reddick was better than Bosa because on 3rd and 4th down, Reddick got the ball out of the QB's hands and put it into the hands of the offense. Like you want these kind of players on your team, but you guys don't want to acknowledge that these players do exist in a market that you do not want to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just why I'm so high on. I was high on Hassan Reddick when we brought him in. I was high on Hassan Reddick 2 years ago when he was in Arizona, wanting out of Arizona. So, it is what it is there. I just, I feel like he's severely underrated in this league. Let's see here. We got Josh Sweat is going to go off this season. Look, Josh Sweat is also, Kyle, an extremely underrated part of this team. I mean, if you ask the average person walking down the street, did Josh Sweat have over under 10 sacks last year? Most people would probably say under, probably because they don't know the stats. But I mean, he had 11 sacks and he was a big part of this defense last year.
I think he's definitely gonna go off this year. I think with the addition of Jalen Carter onto this team, like a lot of people are gonna actually forget about Josh Sweat in a most respectable way, right? Like you're focusing on Jordan Davis, you're focusing on Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jalen Carter, Hassan Reddick, even Nolan Smith at times, right? Sweat isn't the big name because of his knee injury coming out of
Right.
college.
Right.
But he's probably the most efficient player on that defensive line outside of the top 3.
Right.
he's gonna have a phenomenal season. I love Sweat because he's an under the radar kind of guy who
Right.
does the work that you want him to do and just keeps trucking forward without any recognition needed.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you got here? Mark Hurts is top two. Not only did he take his team to a Super Bowl appearance, but he outplayed Mahomes. Show me any quarterback that's done that. He did. He did outplay Mahomes for a part, but he did commit a huge turnover in the end of the first half that had a massive change of momentum of the Super Bowl. Let's not down. I mean, Mahomes is what 27. He's already got 2 Super Bowl titles. I mean, I already have Patrick Mahomes, Mark, in my top 5 quarterbacks of all time, probably at this point.
I'm Jalen is it's very tough, right? And I said Jalen is top 3, right? With Burrow and Jalen, it's a toss up to me because they both had that killer instinct, right? And they both, went toe to toe with Mahomes. They both been to the Super Bowl. But Jalen is just he's built different to me. Like he's the guy that he has no arm strength. Mind you, he was number 1 in top deep passes in 10+ yards in the league. He's not a pocket passing QB. Mind you, he was the top pocket passing QB in the league last season. Like, there's so many things that people are going to say that Jalen Hurts isn't. But the fact that he did go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, and he technically, in my opinion, did beat Pat Mahomes, right? If they're wearing black and white on the field, they're not on the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They're not supposed to be on that team, right? But he did go toe to toe with that team. He did keep the Eagles back in the game, and he did answer every single call that was there for him.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is definitely top 2, in my opinion. But with him and Burrow, I feel like it's one in the same. Like, they're both. I would love to see a Super Bowl with the Bengals and the Eagles, just to see those two go at it. Honestly, that would be phenomenal.
Just the swag, like, because you talk about all the things that Burrows and Hurts are. It's also the swagger too.
Yes,
like the confidence that I always talk about. Like, you could be an average quarterback, but if you have the swagger and leadership ability that Jalen Hurts does, and it seems like Joe Burrow has as well, from a distance, like, you could take average skills and still lead a team to a Super Bowl with that swagger and leadership ability, those intangibles. And Joe Burrow has them. We will see at some point, barring something catastrophic happening with injuries or whatnot. I really do think we will see a Hurts and Burrow Super Bowl at some point down the line.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it'll be phenomenal. I mean, you have Chase and Higgins versus AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift versus Joe Mixon. I mean, it'll be one for the ages.
I mean, there's a lot of talent on both sides of the ball on both those teams. So, I mean, again, it just goes to show, though, also how deep the AFC is compared to the NFC. That you got the Bengals. We could talk about the Bills, obviously the Chiefs. In the NFC, it's just the Eagles. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody really there right now ready to compete with the Eagles. You brought up Jalen Carter, and I want to get your thoughts on Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Sidney. It's camp. The vets don't play a lot in camp. You know what I mean? You get a lot of exposure from these rookies, but yet on the defensive side, specifically the front 4, 7, you don't see a lot of the rookies in the regular season in the Eagles. What kind of an impact do you think Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith can have? And do you think Jalen Carter is going to play because of Javon Hargrave leaving? But we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about Nolan Smith, how he's flying under the radar, and how I don't know how he cracks the rotation like big time, but he's got the talent to do it. And can he do it? So talk about those two guys a little bit.
I think Nolan Smith, hands down, is going to be the steal of the draft. The kid's energy, the motor, like, he's everything you want on your defense. He's everything that we already have on our defense, right? Like, he's Hassan Reddick 2.5. And I don't mean to say that he's better than Hassan Reddick, but no, he's younger than Hassan Reddick, which means he can learn from Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, those guys. And he's going to make a big impact because he has such high energy. The kid just wants to eat. He wants to get off the buffet line, and he wants to go for the food. And that's going to be monumental for the Eagles this year. Jalen Carter, he's going to be impactful, right? He's going to be that guy going forward. I'm curious to see how they run him but in the rotation with Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, and where he lines up majority of the time.
Don't write Milton Williams off.
Yes, absolutely. Milton Williams, who's another monster.
Who's the writer that wrote the article on Milton Williams, typing him up?
Oh, God.
Was it you? Sorry.
It definitely wasn't me. It could have been one of the other guys.
He's my hero because I love Milton Williams, man. I see Milton Williams being such a massive part of this defense this year.
He's definitely going to be a big part. I mean, I feel like he's another Josh Sweat, right? A guy who's efficient, under the radar, who's doing everything that he needs to do when called upon. But again, with those guys in the mix, like, I feel like in my opinion, Nolan Smith may have a bigger impact in the early on of the season, and Jalen Carter may come through like midway to the end of the season where we finally find his groove. They figure out where he belongs in this rotation. Because the key thing, Fletcher Cox is still here. I mean, he's still taking up space. He's doing it as efficiently as possible, right? And Jordan Davis, we haven't seen what he is, but he is in year 2, and they're going to trust him more than they trust Jalen Carter at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so how do you break that? Like, how does this rotation work? Because it is deep. You just mentioned those 4. You got a few other defensive tackles. You've got Nolan Smith, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham. Don't forget, you still got Derek Barnett. You got a lot of guys that could play that front 5. I call it a front 5. How does it break down? Who's going to be the odd man out that's getting the 25% of the snaps instead of the 40, 50%? Because somebody's got to be the odd man out. I still see Nolan Smith early on being that odd man out.
I wouldn't doubt that, just because they still have Brandon Graham, and obviously they're going to play Reddick and Sweat to the maximum as they can. But I don't know, like Nolan Smith, you could be creative with him. Like he's literally like Micah Parsons. You could run him at linebacker, you can run him in coverage, you can run him in, against the run, rush the passer as well. It's a great place to be in, right? You have it's a great issue to have. That's the way to look at it. You have a player that can literally do multiple things on his defense and be anywhere you want him to be, and that's Nolan Smith at the end of the day, and that's exactly what you want. And you have an interchangeable piece between him and Hassan Reddick, where they're literally the same prototype players, and you can actually move them around however you want.
Hey, Davey, I loved your Milton Williams comment, but the Derek Barnett part, I ain't gonna lie, I got a sneaky feeling Derek Barnett, if he makes his team, has a few impactful sacks this year. Derek Barnett's making only $1 million. You can't beat a guy making $1 million that has the pedigree of him. He gets a lot of bad rap in this city, but he actually is a pretty effective, blitzer of the quarterback when he's in the right position. I think you'll be surprised, Davey, about what you get out of Derek Barnett if he makes the final cut down. That's the big thing. If he can make that final cut, if he's healthy and stuff like that.
That's the big if. I mean, if Barnett does stay healthy, I mean, you have a player that's in contract year who needs to make money at the end of the season, right? So he's going to be playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
But it's that situation, like, where does he belong in the rotation now? Like, where do you plug him in, and do you plug him in? I know last time we saw Derek Barnett was the issues of the penalties, nonstop penalties every single time, and allowing the offense to stay alive for the opposing team.
A lot of I'm hoping his year off clears up the penalty issue, because I think a lot of DB's penalties are reputational penalties because he had a bad rep. So the ref sees Derek Barnett on the ground near the quarterback, so he throws the flag because it must be a penalty because Derek Barnett's involved. I really do think I think that happens a lot in all sports. It happens in basketball. It happens in football. It happens at pitching. An umpire gives certain pitchers because of their reputation, a strike or a ball. I think there's a lot of reputation dealing with all this stuff, and I think that's it.
Do you think James Bradbury had a bad reputation with that referee?
Oh, that's just no. I'm over it, dude. I've totally moved on. I sneak a little dig in here and there, but I think it's over. Actually, I think that's a great segue to James Bradbury, something we talked about. The secondary. I like to talk the secondary as a whole, not the cornerbacks and the safeties separately. I look at this safety group and the cornerback group. You got Derek Barnett, James Bradbury. They're both north of 30, but you have no depth behind them. And then the safety realm, you got a bunch of young or role players. And I still look at that as one of the biggest weaknesses on this team. Like what happens. And real quick, we got a lot of people watching. We only got 12 likes on YouTube. Make sure you pound that like button for the algorithm. 2 likes on Facebook. Do that. Share it out, guys. And get those comments and questions for Bryan in here. Where do you feel the confidence meter is for you with this secondary? Because I worry if James Bradbury goes down. I worry if Darius Slay misses more than just a few snaps, because McPherson hasn't really stepped up as much as we hope at this point. You got Sidney Brown, you got Kelly Ringo, you got Reed Blankenship. You got a lot of question marks out there. Where's your confidence meter right now?
With Darius Slay and James Bradbury on the field, I'm at full confidence. Right, those guys there, they've taken they've taken my respect. After them, it's a toss up. I feel like you have Greedy Williams, who when he's on the field throughout his time with the Browns, he was effective. He did
Mhm.
have mishaps here and there, but I feel like lining up against behind Darius Slay and James Bradbury just it should benefit you at this point in your career, right? You have Zach McPherson, who not too many people know what he's capable of, but he's been manning the slot a lot during OTAs, and then Avonte Maddox, who can actually steal your heart and rip it out at the same time.
That's a great way to say it.
Because he's great in coverage at times, but he misses so many tackles and it drives me nuts.
He also misses
Um,
a lot of games.
you what?
He misses a lot of games as well.
As well, yes, absolutely, he
And
does.
we talk about injury-prone players. Avonte Maddox never gets classified in that category. He misses a lot of time.
That's very true. That's very true. And then after them, you have Josh Joby, who we saw little glimpses of here and there. I'm a big fan of Josh Joby. Keely Ringo, rookie, you can't really expect too much out of him. And I don't know, like it's just it's a bit concerning because, like you said, once you rip off that band-aid, if James Bradbury, Darius
Mhm.
Slay, who are both I believe 30 years old. I mean, Slay's 32. Bradbury, I think, just turned 30, if I'm not mistaken. If they go down, I mean, it's very concerning.
Mhm.
Safety wise, I'm a big Sidney Brown guy.
Yeah.
Morgan on our show convinced me that Sidney Brown is the guy.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just looking forward to seeing him. But my issue with him as well is a little bit of the missed tackles, and I don't want the Avonte Maddox syndrome times two. Kayvon Wallace, I feel like if he gets his shot, he's going to be effective and he's going to surprise a lot of people. Reed Blankenship,
This has got to be his last chance, right?
oh, it
Kayvon
definitely is.
This
Yeah,
has got to be his last chance. Him, Davian Taylor, that whole draft class. This has
yes.
got to be their last opportunity.
Absolutely, definitely it is. And I think Kayvon will definitely step up to the challenge. And I think having guys like Bradbury alongside with him, Terrell Edmonds,
Mhm.
Reed Blankenship, I feel like is going to be Harrison Smith 2.0 in time. He's very intellectual when it comes to playing defense. He knows where the ball is going. He's going to be exactly where the ball is, and that's phenomenal to having a safety. Terrell Edmonds, he did good, right? I mean, he did good with the Steelers. He's serviceable. Not to disrespect him at all. I mean, he's in the NFL and I'm not, right? Um, he's better than what we had right, at the end of the day. Like, I would choose Terrell Edmonds over Marcus Epps any day of the week.
Yeah, that's true. Reed, brother, trucking, Blankenship, Judlin. Yeah, I love that, my man. Love that, my man. All right, we've touched on pretty much the whole defense outside of N'Kobe Dean. N'Kobe Dean,
Oh
I
wow,
think
yes.
we talked about the players that have the most pressure on them this year immediately to step up. And I feel like N'Kobe Dean is the guy that has the most pressure. And the reason is because what did he play? Like 20 snaps on defense all of last year, 6 or 7 of them in one game. And he's getting the mic right on him. Like he's literally being thrown right into the fire this year with a very underwhelming linebacker core as a whole.
Mhm.
I've got the confidence, like you have in some of these other players. I have that confidence in N'Kobe Dean. I hope it's not false confidence. I hope I'm not setting myself up for disaster there.
Definitely not setting yourself up. He's one of those guys that's just very instinctual, right? He's very intellectual beyond when it comes on to his role in defense.
Mm-hmm.
My thing though is you said it right there, a very weak linebacker core. It's N'Kobe Dean, Nicholas Morrow, and then like who else, right? And I
Davian
feel like
Taylor, Sean
yeah,
Bradley still on the team.
Sean Bradley's a very special player. I mean, special teams wise, he's very good. He's been on
Oh,
the Flippin' the Bird show, so I would never disrespect him.
all right. I didn't know he was on flipping the birds, but I will say this: there's a lot of players on this team that people say, well, they're really good on special teams. Hold on a
Which is
second.
key. It's
Where was our
key.
special teams ranked last year?
Listen, hold on. I haven't had my coffee yet. You can't be throwing things out there when it comes to special teams, all right? Let's just say he's an efficient player on special teams and leave it at that. Um, but listen, I agree with you. The linebackers, we need a little bit more umph to it, right? The Eagles have to make a move. They got to trade for somebody, whether it's a Patrick Queen, Devin White. You have to bring a veteran into this room just for the simple fact that you need that veteran leadership. I still say N'Kobe Dean deserves to be the mic. He deserves that role. He's going to be great. But you need a guy like a TJ Edwards, a Kaiser White alongside these guys to make sure that everything's going as it should. And a Devin White, a Patrick Queen will make perfect sense for this team. But it has to happen sooner rather than later. And hey, it's almost August, which means Howie's due for his annual wild trade or wild sign that nobody expected.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. We got some things here. So we got a lot of people commenting on Miles Sanders and the running back, and obviously we were talking about the PFF. Smitty coming in at 100. Let's transition to the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like this is another one where Devontae Smith being disrespected. I mean, there was probably, I didn't look at 50 through 100. There were a lot of wide receivers on this list, and said it before, Marshawn. I'll say it again. Devontae Smith will finish the year being ranked higher than A.J. Brown in the realm of wide receiver rankings in the NFL. I have no doubt about it that Devontae Smith will be a better wide receiver than A.J. Brown. Well, we'll just start right there. Do you agree or disagree with that? Do you have the same confidence as I do in Devontae Smith? I just think he's a better overall wide receiver. He high points the ball better. He runs better routes. He takes less plays off. Like he literally, I know A.J. Brown's a beast. He's a monster. He's one of the most physical specimens. He's TOS physically out there, but he's not Devontae Smith. You really need a lot of coffee this morning with some of the things I'm throwing at you.
I'm a big A.J. Brown guy, but I don't disagree with you. Like Devontae Smith is a special player. Route running, the fact that when the ball's in the air, it's either his or nobody's is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And how is he number 100 out of 100 players? Like, all right, right off the rip, can you name 5 wide receivers, your top 5 wide receivers in the league?
In no particular order, Justin Jefferson is definitely one. Devontae Adams. You go, Jamar Chase. You could put Cooper Kupp still because I think he's going to have a big rebound year. Stefan Diggs is in that 5 to 6 range for me. A.J. Brown's in that 6 to 8 range for me. Maybe you put Tyreek Hill up there still too. I don't know. Who else you put up in that range there?
Exactly. Right? Like Devontae Smith
right below that range right now.
He said that he's definitely a top 10 wide receiver, right? And then you can argue, like, why would Tyreek Hill be better than Devontae Smith? Just because of his speed? Sure, I get that. But Devontae Smith is, whenever the ball's in his range, he's going to make the catch. Absolutely. Whenever anything's in his range, he's going to make the catch. And on top of that, he fights for extra yards. He's a playmaker, and he's everything you want on your offense. It's just, I don't know. Again, it's the Philadelphia disrespect. Like, I get it to a certain degree, but at some point, it's just like, come on, really? Like that guy that that comes over once in a blue out of your group of friends, and he just making up all these stories, and he's just saying things to say things, right? And you're like, dude, you did not chase down an elephant in the safari and save him from a lion. Like, you didn't do that. You just didn't do that. And it's literally that same scenario with the Eagles. Like, Jalen Hurts is a top 3 quarterback. Devontae Smith is definitely a top 10 wide receiver. A.J. Brown's definitely a top 5 wide receiver. Hassan Reddick is definitely a top 3 defensive end or edge, whatever you guys want to call him. Like, these guys deserve to be in that lane, whether you like it or not. They've earned it at this rate.
Absolutely agree with you on that, without a shadow of a doubt. Obviously, we started the show off talking Saquon Barkley, but running backs, Chatter and a few others have put Miles Sanders' name in the chat section today. Where are you with the running back? I mean, obviously, we lost Miles Sanders, and I was very, very adamant at the end of the season when we lost Miles Sanders, saying it was going to be very tough to replace his 1,300 yards, his 11 touchdowns. You just don't replace 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. I know he was ineffective in the Super Bowl and he ran his mouth a little bit, in one of the OTAs with Carolina. DeAndre Swift, I have a lot of hope, a lot of, a lot riding on him. Rashad Penny, you still got Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Trey Sermon. Do you think this 5-man team, whichever 3 or 4 make the team, can do enough to replicate the production that we got from Miles Sanders last year?
Yes, and I think they could do better. And
okay. How
now, when I say yes, exactly. When I say they could do better is what was Miles Smith? Wow, Miles Sanders, when he came out of college, he was knocked for his hands, right? He couldn't catch a ball. He wasn't that receiving threat. First season was a great receiving threat, right? After that, just fell off the wagon, and he just became just a pure running back as opposed to a dual threat running back. DeAndre Swift is both. DeAndre Swift, you can line him up in the slot. You can line him up anywhere on the field, and he's going to do damage, and that's what you want in this offense, right? Also, what I love about DeAndre Swift is his quick decision making. The one thing that Eagles fans and all Eagles media complained about Sanders was he wasn't quick to make a decision. He was bouncing around a lot beyond the offensive line. DeAndre Swift is hits the hole, and his acceleration is phenomenal. Like, the kid has such quick feet, and it's going to benefit the Eagles. But the key thing in all of this, like in this whole room, is can everybody stay healthy? Like, can we all just play all 17 games and get to the playoffs and play in the playoffs? Um, I think they'll be better. They'll be better off because you have a way where you can keep both running backs, the main running backs, healthy, right? Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift can actually spell each other. Like, you could
Right.
bring Penny in the later half of the game and actually wear down defenses. You can have Swifty and Kenny Gainwell running crazy in the first half, wearing down defenses. Like, there's got to be a strategic game plan when it comes to the in the running back room. And I think that they're going to do better. They're not going to give you 1,300 yards,
Right.
but they're going to give you a massive amount of touchdowns. They're going to
Right.
give Jalen Hurts a massive amount of room to breathe, and
Mhm.
it's going to be productive. It's going to be what you want out of this running back group, and it's going to go against everything I said in the beginning, where like these guys got to get paid, right?
Right.
Because you have a group of guys who are not getting paid and are doing the work that one running back could or should do, right?
Mhm.
But again, I think Swift is going to be very good for this defense. I mean, this offense. Wow. We're talking
I,
about defense so much, and I'm still stuck on it. He's gonna be very good for this offense. He's gonna be, and I personally think it's gonna be the Alshon Jeffrey effect, right? Where he came in 1 year, did really good, and he's gonna get signed for a multi-year deal. It's not gonna be breaking the bank. It's gonna be a discounted deal. But Swift is gonna be a very surprising player for a lot of people because people are gonna say like, wow, like why didn't he do that good in Detroit? Almost
yeah.
because he didn't have this offensive line. But yeah, I think they're gonna be more than fine.
I have actually already seen some rumors circulating that Howie has already been working on an extension for DeAndre Swift. I don't know who these sources are from and or where they're getting their sources from, but I have seen that. I actually think higher of DeAndre Swift than most people do. I think I've said it before on this show. I don't even think it's a lock that Rashad Penny makes this team
Oh
because if
wow.
you go 3 to 4 running backs, his contract the way it's structured, it costs you pennies to get off from it. You're
Mhm.
going to obviously have Swift make this team. Obviously, Kenneth Gainwell, they are super high on. Boston Scott, I don't know why. They just love Boston Scott at least twice a year against the Giants. And it seems like the team is high on Trey Sermon as well. And based off of the money, the investments, the time, everything you do it, there's a chance if Trey Sermon has a great camp, that Trey Sermon's that last guy, not Rashad Penny, because I think it costs you like 600 grand to cut him before the season starts.
And that's
So
not bad at all.
no, it's not. I mean, I really feel that there is a chance that DeAndre Swift does so well, and they're so high on him, like you said, maybe even long term, that Rashad Penny's extra, and they just don't need him. Give him as a veteran a chance to latch on somewhere, where he'll get actual playing time. I think there's a chance for that for sure.
And see, I want to see Rashad Penny run at the link just one time, just for one
Yeah,
play, just see him bulldoze somebody
to the
over.
crowd when he does that.
Yeah, he'll definitely go down. Um, but I don't know. Like, it makes like going into the offseason, I was big on Kenny Gainwell. I was like, okay, this is time. Like, I was big on him coming out of college. I felt like this was a great pick, especially where you picked him at. And he
Mhm,
showed in the playoffs that he can be the guy. So I was kind of surprised that they went for two new running backs.
mhm.
But now the way you're saying it, like, hey, it makes sense. If they could get out of the Penny deal and Gainwell and Sermon have great camps, you have a very healthy DeAndre Swift, then yeah, I could see it happening. But I don't know, like I think you're right. It's very dependent on Trey Sermon. Like, Nick Sirianni spoke very
When
highly of him.
when you hear somebody like Nick Sirianni mention a guy's name as many times as he has, like it just makes you think for a second. Like
Yeah.
there's no reason for Nick Sirianni to mention Trey Sermon's name 40 times this offseason. You know what I mean? They obviously see something in this kid that makes them think that he's good. And if he's talking about him that much, someone's like, well, they'll just stash him on the practice squad again. Well, if they're so high on him and hyping him up nonstop, he might not make it to the practice squad again. So they
Or
might not.
maybe Boston Scott doesn't make it to the
Uh,
on the roster.
I have thought that, and I've said that on this show before.
New
And
Greg Ward.
yeah, I mean, is Boston Scott a guy that if you're another team, unless you got to face the Giants twice early in the season, if you're another team, are you really running out to pick up Boston Scott to add to your team? Probably not, because he doesn't really do anything special. He's not a great kick returner. He's not a great punt returner. He's not a great running back. He's a dime a
He's
dozen running back.
He's Boston Scott. And I think strategically, you cut the guy, you put him on your practice squad. He's not going anywhere. And you run with DeAndre Swift, Trey Sermon, Rashad Penny, and Kenny Gainwell. And you have everybody you want on the roster that you don't want to lose to see
Right.
how they pan out throughout the season. If Rashad Penny goes down in the first game of the season, you kept Trey Sermon. He's there. If DeAndre Swift goes down the first game of the season, you have Kenny Gainwell, and then you have Boston Scott that you bring up. Like, these guys are very interchangeable. And it's so weird that, and I say this so much on Flipping the Birds, is that it's so weird to see a team ran so well and put together so freaking well that you have so many interchangeable pieces almost at every single spot, except for safety. At every single spot where you can actually truck along and not have to worry so much. And it's just, I mean, I'm a Mets fan, so it's so weird to see a team so well constructed and to be happy about it. So
we always talk about, can Howie Roseman just run all 4 Philly sports teams? You would love Howie Roseman running the Mets for you right now, wouldn't you?
I would give my year's salary for Howie Roseman to run the Mets.
I'm not sure if your yearly salary is enough to convince.
It probably isn't.
Mine and yours combined isn't enough. You just said that the interchangeable parts, if one guy goes down, and it is a thread. It was a very unpopular thread yesterday on Twitter I put out there because people think I'm bringing bad juju to the table. And you've already seen, obviously, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, that pain in the, you know what, going down seems like maybe not as serious. You've seen some running backs. You're seeing injuries pile up already across camp. Last year's conversation is Nick Sirianni being too cautious with the way he runs practices and stuff like that? It obviously worked. So the thread I put out there yesterday is injuries. Where obviously, if you lose Jalen Hurts, your season's over. Any team, whether you're the first team in the league or the last place team in the league, if you lose your starting quarterback, you're screwed. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. Outside of quarterback, if you lose a player on this team, who are we least capable of losing? Like, who would you worry most about? Obviously, a lot of people say Lane Johnson. Obviously, we've all seen the record when Lane Johnson in versus out. But I still have confidence in Jeff Stoutland and the depth on the offensive line. Where would you be most concerned if somebody went down with a catastrophic injury in training camp and we're going to miss X player for 8, 10, 12 weeks the entire season? Where would you be most worried about?
Hassan Reddick.
Oh, wow. You wouldn't be confident with Nolan Smith stepping in to fill that role right away?
Yes and no. It's a double-edged sword, right? Like, yes, I'm confident Nolan Smith doing his thing, right? Mm-hmm. But there was no better player on 3rd and 4th down to get you the ball than Hassan Reddick last year. Oh, wow. And again, it's like asking Brandon if you want Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett to strip sack Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, right? You're gonna 9 times out of 10 you're gonna choose Brandon Graham, and Hassan Reddick is, to me, like, he's that difference maker. Like, you have Nolan Smith, yes, but you don't know what he is yet. Mm-hmm. You have Josh Sweat, who can be productive, yes, but it's Hassan Reddick to me, at least I would say. Outside of the cornerbacks, obviously, like, if the cornerbacks go down, which we discussed earlier, like, that's it. Like, it's gonna be tough, right?
See, cornerbacks is 1 for me, and 1B for me is, as Davey says, AJ Brown, or Davey, you could say Devontae Smith. I still think one of the biggest weaknesses on this team is the depth at wide receiver. And obviously, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are so good, and last year they stayed healthy all season long. I kind of get worried. I don't know about you. I believe in karma and law of averages. And law of averages say somebody big is going to go down this year. And I worry, are you really going to be confident if Quez Watkins has to step in for A.J. Brown or Britton Covey has to step in or OZ has to step in? Like, that's a big drop-off there from your top 2 wide receivers to the rest of them.
I'm fairly confident that if A.J. Brown does go down, Alameda Zaccheaus, I love saying his name.
I can't say it. I just say OZ. I've tried 100 times. I can't say it. And people have put up his name phonetically into the comments, and I still cannot say it.
I love it. It's such a Greek god name, like Alameda Zaccheaus coming for you, Thor.
It's great. I think you just wrote a new Thor comic book right there.
I'm fairly confident if A.J. Brown does go down or Devontae Smith goes down, the Eagles still move forward, right? Because I did mention, DeAndre Swift is capable of being that receiving threat for the Eagles. Alameda Zaccheaus is also very possibly could be that guy in the slot. Quez Watkins, I hate the Twitter stuff, but he can be that guy that they need. He was a good number 2 when before they got AJ Brown with Devontae Smith. He had like 700 plus yards, and he's a great deep threat. It's just a matter of getting the ball in your hands and making it stay there. That's all it is.
But honestly, what did he have? He had 3 mistakes last year. It's just the moments of the mistakes. Like, I always talk about
Super Bowl miss.
Like, yeah, your 3 losses. You had 3 crucial mistakes in your 3 losses last year, and it's especially in the Super Bowl. when you're in the grand stage. We talked about it with baseball last year. Reese Hoskins making a huge error in the World Series. It's like when you're on the grand stage, those one mistake gets amplified bigger than it really is.
It does, and I'll never forget that drop, right? And it was just like you could see in Quez's eyes where I think he overthought the catch and he overthought the play, that he went diving for it and he didn't really have to. Like it was gonna be right in the breadbasket. He just ran it just 2 more steps. Um, it's got to be haunting, especially for a player. But I
Absolutely.
feel like those kind of things you could turn over this season, right? Those kind of things where you can actually find your role. And I know he had a tough time finding his role last year, but find your position and just make the best out of it. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to do nothing extra. Get the ball in your hands. If you have open field in front of you, run. If you don't, go down, whatever case may be. But just get the ball in your hands and make it stay there. Like we don't need another Nelson Aguilar. We don't need another Jalen Rager.
Right.
You've proven to us that you can be a good player on this team.
Yeah.
Do it. That's
I'm
it.
just
Just
curious if
do it.
Davey is talking about the wide receiver or Zucchini. I don't
I
think
love
this. I
zucchini.
mean, it looks like zucchini. I think you spelled zucchini there. Not the real name. I'm not a fan of zucchini, but grill it up, a little saute it, maybe it could be okay. Real quick, last question, then I'll let you get out of here. One of the other things we've talked about a lot as we've led up here to the start of training camp is, obviously we've talked about the message, going forward here, but in my opinion, there is pressure on this team to match last year's success, to exceed it, to get the chip. Obviously with the NFC East or the NFC as a whole being a weaker conference, they are the favorite to make it to the Super Bowl again. Who on this team has more pressure on them to match last year's success or to prove it wasn't a fluke? Is it Jalen Hurts or is it Nick Sirianni? Because I think everything this season comes down to those two having a successful season. And I think there is pressure on both of them. I personally think the pressure's on one more than the other, but I'd love to know your thoughts on where the pressure lies this year for success.
I think it's Nick Sirianni. I think he's the head of the body, right? At the end of the day, if your mind is feeling any insecurities, then anxiety kicks in. The moment anxiety kicks in, everything starts to be more amplified as an issue than it really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've had the success and you're struggling just a little bit on the smallest thing, your reaction to that small thing can have a monumental impact on the whole body. If your team sees you flipping out and panicking about one thing, then your quarterback's gonna look at you like, okay, like what the hell's going on? Am I doing this wrong? He's gonna start getting nervous and start getting a little insecure. He gets insecure, the offensive line gets insecure, and it's such a domino effect as to what could happen if Nick Sirianni isn't Nick Sirianni of old.
Yeah. Okay, I got you, and I agree with you on that. I think Nick Sirianni still has more to prove too. I mean, say what you will about Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, they're both gone. They both did their job pretty well last year. You're losing them. You've picked two new coordinators to take, step up. And I think there's a lot, that goes into it. There's a lot more pressure because he's got a lot more unproven assistants around him as well. I think I think Nick Sirianni is still an unproven commodity, even though I know it sounds weird, but I think he's an unproven commodity in the NFL still at this point. And Davey's saying it's on Jalen. We'll get into that in a little bit for sure. Tyrone, last year, they never showed any sign of stress. People kept waiting for a fall that never happened. They have dogs on this team. I think AJ has that effect. Look, that is law of average. What happens when the going gets tough? We've all seen Tyrone, the schedule. We know how difficult the schedule is going to be in the middle of the season. How Nick Sirianni, what speech he gives this team when the going gets tough, how he rallies troops. I'll say this, Bryan, and you can get out of here on this one. I do not think this team will ever, as long as Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are at the helm of this team, will ever lose more than 2 games in a row because both of them, the way they lead this team, will never let this team lose more than 2 games in a row.
I 100% agree with that. I feel like this team is going to we're going to get back that 04 feeling, right? The team that always made it to the national, I can't speak this morning, to the NFC Championship game every season. Like we're going to get back to that, right? And we're going to get back to that wearing Kelly Green, okay? Just want to emphasize that part. Just for Phil.
All right, so Bryan Cameron, when's the next episode of Flipping the Birds coming out?
So the guys might correct me, but I think it's tonight. It's been a whirlwind, right? I just finished moving to a new place. I'm still getting settled in. So it's either tonight or possibly Thursday. One way or another.
We'll have another
yeah.
this week.
It's gonna happen this week. It's definitely gonna
All
happen. The
you
band
gotta
is back.
do is make sure you hit the subscribe on the Philadelphia Sports Network YouTube page. Hit that little bell, turn the notifications on. Then you'll know when Brian's live, when I'm live, when anybody goes live, and whenever we do anything on the YouTube page, just do that. Bryan Cameron, thank you very much for joining me today, man.
Thanks, Phil. Have a good one, man.
You do the same. Thanks. That was my man Bryan Cameron, flipping the birds, managing editor of the Philadelphia Eagles for Philadelphia Sports Network. We're gonna roll through some of these comments that you guys got. Oh my God, Davey, I love you. You're my favorite. Fugazi. Hate the Kelly Green. We're going to get back to some of these comments. It's all about A.J. Brown. I actually think A.J. Brown's a big diva. And somebody else brought up A.J. Brown here, Tyrone, a few minutes ago. I think A.J. Brown has diva in him. And if the going gets tough, I think A.J. Brown is the type of guy that could cause some of that drama to snowball out of effect. And we've talked about that on the show. Real quick, before we get back to the comments, we got 14 likes on YouTube. We got 2 on Facebook. Make sure you're hitting that like button. It helps the algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. Man Chatter, you had said before about the quarterbacks. He had said before you had said that comment, he puts Hurts at number 2 and Burrow 3, but he said they're interchangeable. But he had Josh Allen at number 4. He stressed that Burrow and Hurts have played in the Super Bowl. Josh Allen has not. You almost have. You almost have. Bryan Cameron's great, guys. You guys got to check out the Flippin' the Birds podcast that they do Tuesdays or Thursdays throughout the year, talking nothing but Eagles on the Philadelphia Sports Network. But again, if you hit that subscribe button, you'll never miss it. I greatly appreciate it. He might be diva, but all the tape showing it. Okay. I'm not, man. I'm just so everybody knows. I don't question how talented A.J. Brown is. A.J. Brown is a beast. He's a physical specimen. I mean, he's so big and strong that A.J. could play tight end. Like, he's got that T.O. strength and body. But I just feel like deep down inside, there's a little bit of diva mentality there. And diva mentality, when the going gets tough, can snowball out of control. Flip side of the equation is, I am so confident that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts won't let it ever fall out of control. Even if Jalen Hurts went down, Jalen Hurts would be on that sideline every single day, leading the charge and stuff like that. You were ready. You probably had it typed up, ready to enter. AJ has a diva streak for sure, and I worry about that. You look at some of the years in Eagles history past where the downfalls happen. Alshon Jeffrey, T.O., Randall, anybody that's a diva. If the going gets tough, problems happen. Yeah, Flipping the Birds is great. Like, literally, like, I found Philadelphia Sports Network years ago because of the Flipping the Birds podcast. They do a fantastic job. The whole team of writers at Philadelphia Sports Network that do all the Eagles coverage as well is great. I don't think he goes too far away from Jalen wants him to be. That's fair. And I think that, but again, that goes back to Jalen Hurts won't let, like, I worry about divas. I worry about A.J. Brown, Darius Slay, the egos on this team. But Jalen Hurts keeps everybody in check. Nick Sirianni keeps everybody in check. And that's why, and I said, and he agreed there at the end, I don't think this team can ever lose more than 2 games in a row because the willpower, the leadership, the fight that they put out there at the top with Sirianni and Hurts won't ever let that happen. Hurts. That almost looks like Wentz there. Like you spell it, won't allow that to happen. Like your misspelling of Hurts there, Kyle, makes me, for some reason, made me think of Carson Wentz's name there. And there's drama. Like, Carson Wentz was not that guy. Man, Chatter, it's only a problem when you diva in the mid. Yeah. Culture. Culture is important. It massively is. That's why we start the show. Let me pull up for those that are just joining the show now. My man, Coach Gabe Martinez. He's a semi-pro. So he coaches pro football out in Europe, and he does semi-pro football coaching here in the U.S. He's also a talent agent for Pro Level Sports Agency. He helps kids find jobs in the USFL and XFL and stuff like that. That we're not sneaking up anybody this season. You got to understand that there is a target on your back, he told me. That would be part of the message. That's part of the culture this year. We might still have, because of the disrespect at the PFF and stuff like that, we still might have that disrespect underdog mentality. But everybody sees it coming now. And you really do have to focus on being perfect every single day. There's no taking days off. You can't let a game slip. You can't have culture, Tyrone. We talk about all the time with the Sixers and now with the Phillies last night. The scheduled loss mentality. The Eagles, not only the Eagles won't have that, but they can't have that because of the target on their back. as the NFC champions. Jalen wouldn't be tight with someone that's going to be disruptive in the locker room. Well, yeah, I agree, but also, I mean, how they are on the field and how they are off the field in your friendly family environments could be totally different as well. Trying to keep that business and personal separate. Like Jalen and James Harden and Joel Embiid don't seem to be getting along, all the time, but they're still friendly and they're still hanging out. I don't know. Isn't that the appeal of getting players from top schools? What, the culture, the winning attitude? Absolutely. Like I always have said, why are you drafting Jalen Reagor from TCU or Dark Barnett from Tennessee? You go get the you. If I'm a GM of a team and it's draft prep season, Tyrone, you know what I'm doing? I'm looking at the 4 teams. Well, now isn't it going to be 8 teams in the college playoffs now? But I'm looking at the final 4 teams in college. I'm like, all right, I want 5 players from those 4 teams. That's my target in the draft. I want to make sure I get the best defensive players and the best offensive players from those 4 teams. I want the guys from Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Clemson, the guys playing for the big games every single week in the college season. They're the guys I want. I want the winners from the winning teams on my team because they're used to winning. They're not used to losing. They don't want to lose. Dealing with everyday pressure. Oh, yeah. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, the pressure that some of these guys from Alabama had to deal. Yeah, you're recruited by Nick Saban, and there's pressure the second you get recruited by Nick Saban. The second. You almost have, but you didn't. Now go on next time either tonight or Thursday night when they do Flippin' the Bergs. Just hound his comment section, try to get him to say it. Look, I'm not a college football guy. I don't watch a lot of college football. Honestly, when you're a sports fan, married, you got a business, you can only watch so much sports. You can't. You got to turn the TV to something else. Occasionally, wrestling. Um, but I just don't get into the college sports thing. It is unhealthy to still be angry anytime someone mentioned Jalen Reagor. Is it? Oh, is it? I read that backward. It is, but I could re-raise it. It is. Look, Jalen Reagor was what he was, Davey. I didn't hate on him as much. Jalen Reagor's biggest mistake wasn't his own mistake. It was Howie Roseman misrepresenting him and picking him too early in the draft. Like a lot of players get drafted too early and can't live up to the expectations. Just like when a player gets a max contract and can't live up to that contract because the team overpays them. Like sometimes that's the team's fault, not the player's fault. Jalen Reagor was never going to be capable of living up to the hype of being a first-round talent. And then you have Justin Jefferson go on to the next pick to Minnesota and become the number 1 wide receiver in football. Like, just think about that. Like, not only was Jalen Reagor not good enough, but the very next selection was now the best player in football. Good morning, John. How you doing today? Draft top school players to form. Yeah. I mean, you want guys used to the big moments. You want guys that are in winning cultures. You don't want guys that accept. I mean, with the Sixers, we always talk about the losing mentality, the scheduled losses. Well, that comes from some of those players on this team, like Joel Embiid, is used to losing because he was here during the Brett Brown era. He was here for the 10-win Sixers team, even though he wasn't on the court. He was here for, scheduled losses on a regular basis. That got ingrained to him that it was okay to lose. Physically, he should have been. He was a mental midget. I think, there's I'm sure you guys know the rookie symposium. And I don't know what's the current agenda at rookie symposiums anymore after the NFL draft, but they really need to spend a whole entire day with all the rookies just talking about social media. Just turn it off. Just turn it off and turn it off. And don't talk sports. If you want to keep an Instagram page, don't post anything football related. Just stay off of it. If you want to just scroll it to see pictures or celebrities or musicians, whatever. But the amount of immaturity in these young players, they get 50,000 followers instantly, 100,000 followers instantly because of, their fame and fortune. And it's just a recipe for disaster. And, if you don't have a strong mental state and you can't handle the fans coming at you, and they do, and Tyrone, I firmly believe, Tyrone, that fans took the harassment of Jalen Reagor too far. Like, I mean, they bullied this guy nonstop and said some awful, awful things on a regular basis. But he was so he's part of that age group that just can't get off of social media. And I could turn my phone off and not have it on for 10 days and I'd be fine. Not checking Twitter. You'd all miss me, but I can't turn it off. But I could. Like it wouldn't bother me one bit. We've gone on vacation before where I just turned my phone off. Like we went on a cruise a few years ago. I turned my phone off, put it in the safe, then pulled it out till 7 days later. You know, I could do that. A lot of the young players, the young 20-somethings, they grew up in a social media age. I remember still hitting can you get off the phone so I can log into AOL? You know what I mean? I still remember those chat rooms, and stuff like that at different times. I don't blame the player. Yeah, you shouldn't blame the player for when they're misdrafted, misclassified, overpaid. Like, I never blame Tobias Harris for his big contract. He got given a contract that he was never going to get anywhere else. Of course he's going to set up his family for the next 3 generations and take $180 million or whatever it was. Was watching 96 Bash at the Beach. That's not the good Bash at the Beach. That's not the Hogan turn year. That's the Bash at the Beach you got to watch. No risk. Your career arguing with Rando. I live in Alabama now. Saban is God here. The people here love Bama football. There's a lot of pressure. I could not imagine. I was almost going to say I can't imagine. I can't imagine the pressure playing for Nick Saban. It's got to be immense. It's got to be insane. People are like, I don't even know why he would ever try to go coach anywhere outside of Alabama. Like, he will retire in Alabama. Someone said, I saw something on Sports Center on some major site talking about, because he hasn't won a title, in like 3 minutes. So, like, is his legacy on the line is Nick Saban on the hot seat in Alabama? Nick Saban ain't on the hot seat ever. Nick Saban will retire in Alabama whenever he so chooses. Just like Coach K at Duke and, some of these other legends in college sports. Like, could you just imagine, like, as a parent, Nick Saban comes to your house to recruit your kid? It's like just the pressure that's got to put, like, if I had a kid, I don't have any kids, and Nick Saban was, I'd look at my kid and be like, are you really this damn good? Like, you better be this good. You better not embarrass me in front of this man. Like, it's got to be intense. It's got to be insane. Again, we got a lot of people watching. We got 15 likes now on YouTube. Hit that like button on Facebook, YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter, go over there, get your comments in. Did you ever have a landline? Dude, of course I had a landline. It was the only way to get on the internet back in the day. And if somebody called your house while you're on the internet, you got kicked off the internet. And then you had to start all over again, logging in. What's Twitter? It's called, oh, that's right. It does throw me off because I always have Twitter open at the top of the screen, but it doesn't have the bird anymore. It's got the X. Yeah. We talked about this earlier. Feels low. It feels massively low. We talked about it with Bryan Cameron a little bit ago in the show here. Like, can you name 10 or 12 wide receivers that are better than Devontae Smith? I can't. Devontae Smith might be a top 6 receiver by the end of the year. It's massively disrespectful. Like, Jalen Hurts not in the top 50. Massively disrespectful. Hassan Reddick, not in the top 50. Massively disrespectful. Smitty landing at 100. I think he was landed at 100 exactly. Massively disrespectful. And it goes to show that there's still a chip on this team's shoulder to prove that. But as I'm always told, lists are just that. They're subjective. They're opinionated. They're built to be clickbait. And I guarantee you, some of the thought process, PFF claims to be this very reputable source. I don't want to disparage them. I always say you take their rankings and their rating system, you take it all with a grain of salt. You take it as part of the equation, not the whole. And there's people out there, whatever PFF says, it's God. It's not. They're just like everybody else. They're looking for clicks. And disrespecting Philadelphia sports teams gets you clicks. It's 11 million. It might not be enough. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised it's that low, honestly. I mean, I bet you he's got some other money coming in from boosters, and does that stuff still happen? I don't know. I'm sure there's some money being slid under the table to him as well. His only issue is he doesn't make himself the focal point. Are we talking about Devontae Smith? Because I agree, like, Devontae Smith doesn't have an ego. A.J. Brown wants the ball. He says, give me the ball, A.J. Brown. If he doesn't get the ball, he says, why aren't you giving me the ball? That drive stalled if you gave me the ball. Devontae Smith, if you look at it, Devontae Smith had more snaps than A.J. Brown last year. because he does all the little things as well. He's a more complete wide receiver. He just doesn't have the physical body. Is Amon St. Brown, Terry McLaurin, CD, Debo better than Smitty? Ross St. Brown is not better than Smitty. Terry McLaurin this year will not be. He's got the talent to be, but Washington's a train wreck, and they got a rookie quarterback. CD is borderline. CD is borderline for sure. And Debo is borderline as well. I mean, I don't see much of a difference between CD and Debo. It's really close. But I would have no problem. I don't think I'd be hot take clickbait saying that he's better than all those guys. I'm not trying to be that guy. I try to have a very open-ended conversation and be fair. Like, I just don't think at this moment I would take those guys. CeeDee Lamb's a guy I think has all the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver. I just don't think he puts it together. And I think Dallas, I think your rankings is related to your team as well. And Dak Prescott's okay. Mike McCarthy is a terrible coach, in my opinion. Well, not terrible, extremely overrated coach. Debo, I don't know. He's good. Is he great? I don't know. Debo puts up good fantasy numbers, but I don't think you win a Super Bowl with Debo. And Terry McLaurin, man, Scary Terry. I mean, he's got a nickname, Scary Terry. But yet, what's he do? You know, everyone says a quarterback can elevate players on its team. Well, a wide receiver could elevate a player too. Terry McLaurin the last few years hasn't elevated anybody there in Washington. Yeah, I wish. I'll take a 5 spot right now. DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, D-Hop, Amon. I disagree with so many. DJ Moore's a good wide receiver, not great. Garrett Wilson hasn't proven anything to me. Hop is at the end of his career. There's a reason why he stayed a free agent for so long and had to go to Tennessee of all places. Amon, again, don't agree with Amon. CD and Debo, it's borderline, but it's close. But there's no way DJ, Garrett, and D-Hop and Amon are better than Devontae at this point. Not at all. CD was the only option last year. Yeah, and getting Brandon Cooks, it'll make him better. That's why having AJ and Devontae opposite each other, obviously, plays off of it. You can't double team both of them. You know what I mean? So somebody's always open. Whatever is the highest paid coach in college football, Nick's contract states he gets an automatic. Oh, that's a fantastic thing right there. I wish that was mine. I would love a contract for that. Yeah, Heineken beat the Eagles last year. The Eagles played a really bad game last year against Washington. He did. There's no doubt about it. But Devontae Smith, if he doesn't make that, or not Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins had a big mistake late in that game. Brandon Graham got called for a really bad penalty late in that game. It's almost like the NFL won it. It was part of the script to lose that game. They did everything they did there. Jalen Waddle better than Smitty? No, not at all. Smitty is such a big stage player. It's refreshing to see a star who crumbles. Yeah, look, I like Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle's got extreme talent. I just don't think he's on the level of Smitty. But again, you're talking about Tua versus Jalen. Smitty's better because he's got Jalen. Jalen Waddle's got Tua, who you never know when he's going to play and not play. And I think that plays a factor in it as well. Where are you team New World Orders or WCW? Oh, that I'm trying to. Sometimes your words don't roll well off the tongue there. Dude, the NWO was fantastic. It's great for the business of wrestling. It was. Anyway, we're going to start the wrap-up process here. We're going to continue talking training camp. We'll see what the media availability says after today, what articles come out. We'll talk about all the stories. Maybe we'll dive back into some baseball and the Phillies' schedule loss last night, just how bad it was. But then they'll go out and win tonight and make the conversation change again. Got to give a shout-out to my man Bryan Cameron for coming on this morning again. Greatly appreciate his time. Flippin' the Birds, Eagles managing director. Make sure you check out Flippin' the Birds tonight or Thursday. He wasn't sure when. Again, we got 15 likes. We've had up to 25 people watching at a time today. Make sure you hit that like button on Facebook and YouTube. It helps the algorithm. It helps grow the show. And if you want to drop a super chat tip, that's greatly appreciated as well. But I mainly care about sharing the show out and building the algorithm. Will you get updates on camp at work? I'm on my phone and my laptop at work all the time. In between every single order, refreshing Twitter, refreshing everything, man. I never miss a story breaking. Never miss a story breaking. But anyway, we're going to wrap up the show right there. Trending in the AM here live every single morning, 8:15. Not 8:30 anymore, because 1 hour is not enough anymore. You guys have convinced me to go an hour and 15 minutes every day. We start building this show up and getting the views, the likes, the super chat tips, up. Maybe we'll start going at 8 a.m. every day. Maybe we'll start doing an hour and a half. Hell, if I can get the views up on the show enough and get some sponsors on the show, I'll go 2 hours every day. But I greatly appreciate everybody that tuned in. Davey, Tyrone, Marshawn, everybody that tuned in live today. I'm sure I'll get a message from Drew and Eric later. Oh, damn, we missed the show. But I love you guys. I love everybody that tunes in every day. John, appreciate it. Tyrone, check in every morning, man. We're here every single day doing this. And now that football season's here, everybody's going to be happy that it's going to be Eagles every day. We don't have to dedicate one day to the Eagles anymore in the offseason. Every day is football day now. It's everyday football here. I got some fantasy football content coming up on this show in the coming weeks to help you prep for your drafts. If you bring your fantasy football questions, we can answer them whenever on this show as well. But for Philadelphia Sports Network, I am Phil. Oh, hold on, we got one final. What are the chances the Phillies let down for the Eagles? Like the Phillies are going to crash and burn this year. I really firmly believe that. Thank you very much for the kind words there, Judlin. I greatly appreciate it. We'll wrap it up. We'll pick this up tomorrow, guys. Bring your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Trending in the AM, Philadelphia Sports Network. Turn those notifications on, my guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day, guys.